I'm Lisa Sugarman. I'm an author, a mental health advocate, and a crisis counselor.
Can you tell me about your own mental health journey?
Sure. So my own journey is more the journey of my family, in particular, my father, who I learned very, very late in my life had mental illness. So for me, that was kind of the defining point in my life when things shifted and when my focus really went from all the other work I had been doing in my life as a parenting author and a parenting writer. Everything just kind of completely shifted when I learned that my father, who I lost when I was 10 years old, to what I was told was a heart attack, was actually not to a heart
Mm.
attack. He actually had taken his life. I didn't find that out for 35 years after
Oh, wow.
he passed away. Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a gut punch, and I've lost him now twice in my life. And that really is what completely shifted all of my, my focus and my energy into the mental health space. It's what motivated me to become a crisis counselor with the Trevor Project and to work with Samaritans and to work with the National Alliance on Mental Illness and to do all the other work that I've been doing and just really try and get a better understanding of what someone in that position of being that deeply afflicted by mental illness is thinking and doing and why they're making those choices.
Well, you just started something amazing is the Help Hub. Can you tell me about that?
I would love to tell you about the Help Hub. I'm so glad that you asked. So it's funny how that started. It was a passion project. It was just something I was doing on the side. I had redesigned my entire website to really kind of be a destination for people to find help and resources and content that would connect them with the support that they needed. Either maybe it was grief support or loss support or mental health support. I wanted people to be able to go to one place to find whatever they needed. And, like a lot of these mental health related websites, everybody has a resource page. Everybody has
Mm.
kind of the same, I don't want to say the same, but in many cases, we all share the same resources, kind of recycle them over and
Yeah.
over again. And they're like the bigger resources, the bigger organizations. And I kept kind of quietly accumulating more and more and more. And it became, just like I said, a little bit of a passion project to really kind of beef up what was on my page to really be able to appeal to anybody who may come across my page, whether it was someone who had a similar background to my own or someone completely different. And so after a period of time, I realized I had this insanely long list that had no structure. It had no format. It would be very difficult for someone to actually go through to find what they needed. And I just kind of took it one step further and decided to break it into categories because in all of the searching around on the internet that I did and that I have done in the past year, the one thing I didn't see was a place where anyone from any background or economic situation or race or religion or anyone could go to find unique help that was suited for them under that kind of that one
Yeah.
roof, so to speak. And so I built it. I created it and I divided my sites into different categories. LGBTQ category, veterans, elderly, BIPOC, children, teens, AAPI, Latinx, I mean, everything that you could think of or that I could think of, and started building individualized pages under this hub. And ultimately, really only within the past month or so, I rebranded it again to now become the helphub.co. And that's a place where anyone can go to find the unique and individualized help they need.
I know I live with bipolar disorder too, and finding
Mm-hmm.
information is challenging, especially something that can be truly relatable. So, how
Yeah.
important is it for someone who is finally looking for help to find something that truly fits them?
I think it's huge. And I think it's interesting that you say that because I feel like that's the one overarching comment that I keep getting from people in relation to the Help Hub and what people's impression of it has been. People are so grateful to find a place that has support for them because it's validating. It means that you found a safe spot. You found a safe space where your issues or challenges or concerns are are met in with the kind of resources that you may be looking for. It means that they're thought of in a way that makes you feel like you belong in that space, that makes you feel like you're not isolated, you're not alone, that you're in a place where you can find help. And I think that it's a really powerful feeling. And that's what people have said. They don't often go onto one site and can find what they need for themselves, because you may be able to go onto a site that's within the BIPOC community, for instance, that would just have resources for someone in that community or
Yeah.
Latinx community and so on. But there are very few, if any, places that have resources for anybody in any community. So, I think more than anything else, it's very empowering and it's very welcoming. And I hope it's a supportive place where people can find what they need.
And you said earlier you do some work with the Trevor Project. Can you tell me
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, of course. So the Trevor Project is one of the largest, it's probably at this point the largest LGBTQ focused crisis support lifeline on the planet right now. It's been around we're getting close to our 27th year. I've been involved for about 2.5 years. They have a lifeline, which is your old fashioned, pick up the telephone and get a counselor on the other end and talk about what's going on in your life. Or you can also utilize their texting platform for people who maybe want or need a little bit more of a buffer, and aren't ready to really talk to someone voice to voice. So we've got two different options, and we're 24/7. And our primary demographic are LGBTQ teens and youth ages 13 to 24, but we certainly take calls from anyone in any community of any age, but that is our primary demographic in the LGBTQ community. And we support them the way that 988 Lifeline supports any caller who calls in crisis.
And for you, with your experience, how does it feel for you to be helping people?
It's one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, honestly, Michael, it's put me in a position of being able to support the people who were in my father's position, who were feeling desperate, who didn't have options. I mean, remember, my father passed away in 1978, so they didn't have resources in
Right.
communities like this. Certainly not ones that were built out in the way that 988 or Trevor Project or Samaritans are built out. And I want to be the person on the other end of the phone that's there to help change the trajectory of that person's situation. Maybe they don't have a safety plan. Maybe they have never been validated. Maybe they don't know where to go for help. And I want to be on the other end of that phone. So it's honestly, for me, I can't imagine ever now not being on the phone lines. It's become one of the most important pieces of work that I do in the world. And I'm grateful to be there to do it.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
It's a great question. So, it's interesting. Have never I've never had any real significant bouts of depression. Never had any real issues with anxiety, but I have anxiety, and I do get down, and I do have this highly empathic personality type and this highly sensitive personality type that dials me so deeply into people. And so I feel the weight of what people around me are feeling really acutely, and I always have. And being on the lifelines, I feel it 1,000 times more. So for me, I just lean really heavily into my own self-care practices. I mean, I have a really strong daily practice ritual. I get up first thing in the morning. The very first thing that I do in my day is to meditate. I set an intention. I get grounded. I put whatever's in my head into a journal. I move my body. I do silly little things like I hydrate, or I make sure to read 10 pages a day. Those are the things that I do, along with, of course, therapy, which has been a beautiful addition to my life in the last couple of years. I had seen a therapist. God, I think I was in college, kind of, in that gap year. What do I want to do with my life period of my youth? And I saw a therapist for a bit of time, and then went like 30 years without. And gifting myself that therapy hour every week has been one of the greatest gifts I've ever given to myself. So those are the things I do to make sure that, that I'm good, that I'm grounded.
Yeah, with part of my treatment is therapy, psychiatry,
Hmm.
but I also have a strong support system with my wife and two kids. And, sometimes it's challenging for them, but what can a support system, a family do to help someone going through something?
I think the biggest thing, and I love that you have that for you. I have the same thing. I have the most supportive husband in the world, and I have two daughters who are equally as supportive. But I think the biggest thing is to really just keep those communication lines open, because when you're in a family unit, even though in those family units you tend to be more open and transparent than you would be probably with the outside world, we still don't say everything, we still don't disclose everything all the time. And I think it's just a matter of kind of be consistently checking in with each other and asking the right questions, and especially like the parent child dynamic. We're so used to, as parents, being the ones to kind of talk at our kids all the
Yeah.
time. It doesn't matter how old they are, because they're always your kids, right? So
Right.
we always have that inclination to want to be the ones talking at them and giving them the advice and sharing our experiences. But I think one of the best things that we can do is really kind of level the playing field, especially when we have older kids, and really encourage them to do the talking, and we need to be the listeners way more than I think many of us ever are. And I think that's how we create an environment where people within, under the same roof in the same family, feel safe and feel supported and feel heard and feel like they can get what they need. So I think that's how we just kind of keep checking in on each other is the biggest thing.
What have you learned from your husband and kids?
I have learned so much. It's funny. We don't have enough time for how much I've learned from my husband and my kids. Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway for me is to shut the hell up and just listen. And that is definitely jumping off my last point, but it is the truth. I mean, I think the other thing I've learned that goes kind of hand in hand with that is that I can't always fix things. I can't always fix the things that I want to fix. I can't always keep the peace. And sometimes I just have to stop and let people go through things. And when I say people, I mean like my children, for instance, or my husband. Like, we don't all go through things the same way. We don't all approach things the same way. And I think we need to have that mutual respect for how someone else may need to deal with things. I know one of the things I learned from my oldest daughter, she and I attack things very differently in terms of like when there's a problem, when there's an issue that you want to get through or solve or resolve. I was always the one that would, let's come on, let's work it out, let's talk it through, let's dig into it. And she couldn't do that. She needed to have some space and some time and the ability to just decompress. And it was once I finally realized that and I stepped back, and this applies to both my kids. It worked with both my kids. Once I stepped back and respected what they needed more than what I needed, that everything changed. And our dynamic and our relationship completely changed, and the lines of communication were just that much wider. They were just open that much wider. So yeah, I've learned a lot from all of them, for sure.
How does your work help your own healing process?
I don't think I've ever felt as close to my dad as I do now. I had a really, really difficult time in the beginning. I found out about my dad's suicide very much by accident. So I was never supposed to know. And I kind of stumbled on it. And this is now, a little over 10 years ago. So, I mean, he's been gone for 46 years. I found out about his suicide. He had been gone for 35 years when I found out. So it was a complete upending for me. And it's been a journey for sure. And, I at this point have really just, I feel like I'm closer to him now than I've ever been, because I feel like I understand him more now than I ever did, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, when you think suicide, you think, in some cases, you think selfishness, or why couldn't you have worked through things? Or I've learned that those things don't apply. I've learned that when someone is at that level, you're not thinking clearly. You're not in the right state of mind. You're not making good decisions. You're not thinking about the people who are left behind. And I lost my father for a long time in those first few years after I learned the truth, but I found my way back to him. And now at this point, the work that I do, the content that I create, the time I spend on Lifelines, everything that I do right now, I feel like the two of us are doing it together, and it has got to be one of the most beautiful feelings, because just because you've lost someone in whatever capacity you've lost them does not mean that you can't still continue and maintain a different kind of relationship with them. And I'm doing that, and I'm grateful for that.
And speaking of creating content, I saw you have so many great things on LinkedIn. You do work with the Mental Health Television Network. What
Mm.
is it like using those tools to amplify your mission?
I'm just, honestly, I'm just humbled by it. I mean, there are a lot of incredibly talented and vocal people out there in the mental health space who are doing beautiful things, trying to amplify all of these messages. And when we help each other, that's what I found about this community, whether it be Mental Health TV Network or Trevor Project or, um, Samaritans, whomever it is, we're all amplifying each other and using each other as kind of a bigger, broader megaphone to say the same things in different ways. And it's been heartwarming, I guess is the word that comes to mind in a lot of ways, because they're so willing to take my content and to use my voice, and it's validating too, to know that they also believe that my story is worth telling and that my story has the capacity and the power to help people. And that's the whole reason why I have conversations like the one we're having. That's the whole reason why I do the work that I do, because I feel like if what I have to say or what I've gone through, my lived experience can impact one person in a positive way, then that's it. That's like the end game for me. And I'm grateful every chance I get, and to every platform who elevates me like that.
What would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
I'd say a lot of things. I'd say you're not alone. I'd say even if you don't have anyone in your immediate either family or community to turn to, there's a bigger, broader community out there. There are services like Trevor Project, services like the 988 Crisis Lifeline to turn to. And I think I would honestly say that you won't always feel the way that you feel right now. You won't always be in this headspace or this heart space that is so difficult. It will change. It will in some ways diminish. It will probably in some ways escalate, but it won't always be the way it is now. And have a little bit of confidence, a little bit of faith and grace. Give yourself grace that you won't always feel this way. But you're allowed to feel it now. Like you're allowed to sit in it the way you need to sit in it to get through it.
Where do you want to see your mental health mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, I'd like to see everybody in the world going to the Help Hub for all of the resources that they need. This is a free platform, which, I mean, in the simplest terms, it's like a directory.
Yeah.
And I would love to see this directory be the place that people just think of, that they go to. I'd love to continue to create and curate tools and resources and content that changes people's lives in a better way, that gives people hope, that gives people the support that they need. And I would just love to keep reaching further and further, whether it's in this country or beyond. I would just love to see this message of hope, and this message that, it's okay to not be okay, just keep resonating as far as it can.
That's actually the shirt I'm wearing.
I saw that. I had a feel. I know I could see the top. I had a feeling that's what it was. That's great. Well
Uh,
played.
yeah. How can people reach out and learn more?
Well, anybody who wants to know anything about me or any of the work that I do can go to thehelphub.co. That has every body of work that I've ever done, all the books that I've written, columns that I write. I also produce a video series on YouTube called the Suicide Survivor Series that funnels into the Help Hub, as well as a whole toolbox full of tools for grief and loss and mental health and wellness. Everything is there. So you can find that. You can reach me. You can find all my socials right on thehelphub.co.